All right. Welcome, Mushin Warriors, to another episode of Mushin Mental Academy, where our purpose is to provide you the tools for engagement and presence. Today's episode is a continuation of the commitment episode, and this one is focused on commitment selection. And I'll start by saying that we're going to do it all in this take. That's going to be my commitment, is we're gonna go off the cuff right now, whatever is happening, and this is the take we're gonna use. So let's jump right in. So first off, let me just say that I personally had a blast playing around the last couple weeks with integrating the concepts of commitment and just complete commitment in life. And for me, by playing with this and by making the decision that any decision that I make, I will fully commit to. I will execute to the fullest of my ability and I will stick to my word. By doing that, let's just say that I found a lot of discomfort that also came from that. A lot of beauty, a lot of clarity, a lot of amazement, but it also brought me to certain areas that work could be done at, which, I mean, like, that's the point, you know what I mean? It's the only reason to do anything is if the previous state wasn't completely perfect. So in this particular, situation, what I've found is that by being very determined and committing fully to what I'm doing, I'm noticing which commitments seem to work in harmony with each other and which commitments seem like they're drawing me away from the other commitments. So it's almost like finding which life we're living in, which energies and harmonies and frequencies really harmonize together, and which ones don't seem to mesh all that well. So, yeah, I'll start with an easy one. For me, I've been doing qigong during the week. This is actually what brought the original commitment episode, and through that practice, there are days where I might sleep for 2 hours that night because I'm hosting an event the night before or, doing something that puts me in a position where the next day I wake up and certain times I look at the alarm and I'm like, man, like, I don't know if I'm going to show up. Like, I'm exhausted and I'm tired. And by making the decision that I'm always going to be showing up to these things, it forces me into this position where I have to be okay making mistakes. I have to be okay suffering the consequences of what happens based on my decisions. And the lessons are actually learned. Like I the things that I've been noticing are that this accelerates the process to achieving whatever it is that we want significantly. So I'll use an example from Qigong. The very specific example actually that created the commitment episode is that I found myself practicing this energy work, let's call it. And at one moment, I found that an ant was crawling on me, and I got distracted from my practice just because it was crawling on me. And I'll put a link over to the video if you want to check it out. There's a couple other like details and steps that brought me to the realizations, if you will. But what I did to resolve this particular commitment situation, where I found that by choosing my stance and setting there, if ants would come to me, I had already made my decision. So at this point, I'm in it. So now there's a release of this, do I stay or do I go? How many ants are too many ants? How much pain is too much pain? All of it just goes away. When you make the commitment, none of that exists. Uh, there's no more conflict. There's no more dissonance. That's the word I'm looking for. There's no more cognitive dissonance behind making any of the decisions that we make or about remaining in the situations that we're in. And so they allow us to fully engage with presence while we're in the commitment because there's no way out. I kind of found that with this video. There's a part of it where I was like, oh, I could word that better. But immediately I had to click my mind back in because I told you that we're putting out this take. So by me mentioning that and saying that, it means I have to roll with that. I have to be myself in these moments. I have to be okay with being in positions of discomfort, and I have to allow myself to just be me, and it's a beautiful process. I've been having a lot of fun with it over the last couple weeks. I found that I'm being extremely selective over my commitments. I'm not giving an answer right away if someone's asking me something if I don't know. If I know the immediate answer, obviously I'll say yes or no. But if there are any other factors that are involved, I'll say I appreciate it. Give me a moment and I'll get back to you as soon as I'm able to. Or I take notes now a lot more frequently too, because these are the mechanisms that we set in place when we don't have a security net in place, when we're just being. And truth is, that's the state we're in all the time anyway. We don't have redos. That's the beauty of life. We're not supposed to have redos. Mistakes are supposed to happen, and we're supposed to feel discomfort. And by really like being in that discomfort, like in my case, the Qigong, being in the situation where I'm sitting there doing energy work and I'm just getting lit up by ants on my feet, it it changes you. It makes it so that you really go through the process rather than avoiding it or running away from the step. You go right through it. There's no other way than through it, and it's beautiful. So to bring it back full circle, I know I've kind of gone around a little bit on this episode, but in my particular practice with the Qigong and the ant situation, what I've started doing is that I've realized I don't want to get bit by ants. They bother me. It's annoying. So I've started bringing honey. And so I've literally been putting honey on paper towels around my yoga mat so that while I'm practicing, the ants will have somewhere else to go. And as of today, I was able to utilize it, and for most of the practice, I was completely free of ants. I didn't even like, really see any or have any come into my peripheral. I might have had like one at the very beginning and he like left and just chilled. And yeah, it's been beautiful. So I'm happy that this is bringing for me clarity, decisiveness, and it's eliminating so much suffering and discomfort. Because, like I said, the dissonance alone of not knowing whether or not you're going to stick through something, that's the actual torture every single time. If you know you're doing it, you're like, okay, well, like, here's the thing. And then what happens is you remain in life, so you're able to let go. And since life has changed, you don't have any attachment to whatever was, going on before. And suffering literally is the feeling of, like, essentially having all these attachments ripped and having, you know, like being put into positions or being, propelled through life when or in a state that works to essentially free us of all of the things that we've kind of bucketed in around us. So I know this one's been kind of around the block a little bit, but hey, I hope it brings you some value. I know that it definitely does for me. The video alone shows me so much about commitment, about like how many times I can practice before hitting, go on the camera, or, just even knowing specifically how I want the flow to go in my conversation or not to go, if I just want to allow it to be however. So I hope this brings you some value, and I appreciate you as always. Be awesome, be beautiful, and be yourselves.